Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to the Operation Freedom Radio Show that's now the Operation Freedom Radio Show Unplugged. As you know, we are not broadcasting. We are broadcasting from our ancillary bunker, but we're not linked to our main Freedom Bunker in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor at Wham Talk 1600 due to some technical issues. And we believe this will only be for this week. I've been doing the show for 11 years. First time this has happened. On the other hand, guess what? This show initially is focused for our subscribers and then will be networked to the general public over time. It's my honor to have back with me someone who is a very dear friend and someone who I believe is one of the best forensic financial analysts in the world, Bill Holter. A little background on those of you not familiar with Bill. After a lengthy career in financial services, Bill retired in 2006. Moved his family out of the United States. We'll ask Bill about if he's contemplating doing that again. He called it the last time, and needless to say, we are in dire straits as every day. We are getting more and more dire straits, it seems. Bill then returned in 2011, currently makes his home in the great state of Texas. He joined Miles Franklin, which is a precious metals company, as an associate writer in 2012, posted commentaries there until 2015. He is continues to be a precious metals broker at Miles Franklin, and Bill is now working in collaboration with the great Jim Sinclair in helping to educate and enlighten folks through Jim's site, JS Mindset, M-I-N-E-S-E-T, jsmindset.com. As I mentioned, Bill is one of the best forensic economic analysts in the world. Bill, welcome back to the Operation Freedom platform.
Thanks for having me again, Dave.
Bill, every day it seems to be getting worse from a freedom standpoint. I saw this quote this morning. Quote, "The Bill of Rights is not a list of things government has given you. The Bill of Rights is a list of rights the government cannot take away from you." End quote. We seem to have lost that concept with this Biden-Harris thugocracy administration. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're God-given rights.
Yes, they are.
And they're certainly not given or allowed by the government. They're God-given rights. And I mean, we're going almost. It looks like we're going to full-blown tyranny.
Mm-hmm. And with that comes destruction of individuals, our country's financial system. This has been on the radar screen for many years, yet yourself and a number of others who have spoken about this were called conspiracy theorists. And it might have been conspiracy, but you were conspiracy realists that were well ahead of the curve.
Yeah, it's conspiracy fact. At this point, from a financial standpoint, and it's been this way now for probably, I'm going to say 3, 4, 5 years. It's no longer my opinion. It's pure math. I mean, the debt that's outstanding can never ever be paid back, not in current dollars. And we've said all along, and Jim coined the phrase QE to infinity. That's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to blow up the currency. They're going to have to reset the system somehow to wipe out the debt. But make no mistake, someone loses. And if you're invested the wrong way, you lose.
And that someone that loses, Bill, is never the big boys, the global elite. They always are the ones who, for some reason, out of these economic chaotic moments, they gain more power, more control, and more financial resources.
Correct. And that's why we think there will actually be 2 separate resets. The first one will be man-made, and that will allow those that are in power to retain power. And it'll be a bad reset. It won't work. It may only last a couple of weeks, a couple of months, 6 months. But the financial system will come down, and then Mother Nature will step in and reset the system.
And when that second reset occurs, Bill, and I know 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months, whatever it might be, when that second reset occurs, there will be people that, we're not calling them winners, that survive and hold their own, who will those people be?
Well, it'll be people that primarily own physical gold and silver, or own shares in mining extraction companies. Those that are going to lose will be the savers. They'll be the people who have invested in bonds, people that rely on a pension, people that rely on annuities, what have you, people that rely on paper assets for their wealth.
Which brings me to another concept that you and Jim Sinclair have been out front on for many years, and that is get out of the system. In other words, get out of paper assets. Correct?
Yeah, it's not just assets. You want to do it. When we tell people get out of the system, what you want to do is you want to become as self-reliant as possible. From a financial standpoint, yeah, you want gold and silver. You want to be your own bank. You want your hard-earned capital not at the whim of a financial collapse. For instance, when you put money in a bank today, they call it a deposit, but legally what you're doing is once you give the bank your money, it's no longer your money. It's their money, and they owe it to you. So if the bank defaults, do you really believe that FDIC, that has a quarter of 1 penny for every $100 that they insure, are they really going to be able to prop up every single bank? It's not possible.
And if they're going to prop anybody up out of the bank, it's going to be, we'll prop up our boy Jamie Dimon, the CEO of Chase. We'll prop up whoever are on the elite's radar. But it surely won't be you, me, or any of our listeners.
Right, and if you look at the FDIC rules, it's now legal for the banks to bail in customers. There won't be any bailouts. There will be bail-ins. And customer capital is what's going to be used to save the banks.
And when you say bail in, let's be specific about this, because many people say bail in, bail in. In other words, that means if, let's say, you have $100 in your savings account, a bail in would be the bank comes to you the next day and goes, yeah, Mr. Smith, or Miss Smith, you had that $100. Well, you really don't. You really have 10.
Exactly. Just like the South Park cartoons, and it's gone.
And it's gone. Well, let's speak about and it's gone. Right now, Bill, you mentioned many people say, well, bonds, in times of trouble, bonds have always been a, quote, safe haven. Okay, well, let's talk about, right now in China, there's a bond issue going on, isn't there?
Yeah, you're speaking about Evergrande.
Correct.
That's the biggest real estate developer, if you will, in China. And they owe over $300 billion. I just saw another article yesterday. We posted it. They're trying to pay their receivables off by, and they've got different categories. It goes from, I think, 28% to 52% discounts on real estate that they have for sale, and that's the way they're trying to pay receivables. So it's no cash out of their pocket. But if you want to buy a piece of property for them, you get a 40% discount or whatever.
So tell us.
It's hilarious.
So, Bill, play this out over the next several weeks with this company in China.
It literally has the capability of taking the entire global financial system down. Because so Evergrande defaults on $300 billion, and the government of China doesn't come up with the $300 billion. So now you've got ripples. Now you've got them defaulting on counterparties, and the counterparties that get defaulted on, they default on other counterparties. So it's like throwing a big boulder in the middle of a pond. The whole pond is going to see ripples. And because there's so much leverage in the system and everything is propped up with debt, it's easy to topple the entire system.
Now,
it will be one giant margin call. That's the best way to describe it.
And Bill,
it cannot be met.
And Bill, many people believe, well, this will affect. It might affect. Okay, it'll affect China, but it's not going to affect the rest of the world. Oh no, contraire, Bill. This debt that this Evergrande has is tied internationally, globally, isn't it?
It's tied everywhere. It's tied to European banks, U.S. banks, you name it. Not to mention, what happens to production? Mm-hmm. We've already got, production bottlenecks and supply chain problems.
It's all tied together, Bill.
Everything is tied together, and everything is tied together and relies on debt for its value.
So, Bill, I was contacted by a number of people, and they the past couple days, and said, okay, so this Evergrande is obviously imploding. They have huge issues. This is going to have they agreed, a global effect. They said, one would think that people would be just stampeding into precious metals, store of value. It's been the case for 5,000 years. One would think that the price of gold and silver would be going through the roof, even in spite of the manipulation by the algorithms and the banksters and the like. We haven't seen price appreciation as one would have thought with this implosion of this Evergrande in China.
Well, on the contrary, we've seen yesterday you saw gold down $40 and silver down $1. But yes, there is a stampede into metals. I mean, just go talk to any precious metals broker, and their volume is unprecedented. I can tell you the supplies of silver, junk silver is basically gone. We are on a 3 to 4 week delay on 1 ounce Buffalo rounds, generic rounds. We're on a 3 to 4 week delay on 10 ounce bars. The inventory of silver is extremely skinny at this point. So we've seen retail. I mean, people have just been tearing it off the shelves. Yet at the same time, you have a paper deluge of contracts being sold. And understand that those contracts, there's no metal that changes hands. It's not people actually selling metal. That's just strictly financial engineering.
And where are we with the gold supply? Because I saw reports this week, Bill, that the U.S. Mint was short on gold.
They have for the first time ever, the first, 3 or 4 months of the year, they were not delivering gold. Mm-hmm. And then they started to deliver, and they're nowhere near on pace to previous years.
So, Bill, with this Evergrande situation in China, what are going to be some of the next shoes that you believe will drop globally in the financial world that will, if you will, take the Stuart Varneys, the Neil Cavutos, the mouthpieces of the globalist syndicate, that will make them, no one could see this coming. What do you think are some of the next shoes that you see coming dropping that they won't until after it happens?
Well, it'll be in the credit markets. It'll be the bonds of XYZ bank or XYZ broker. Just go back to 2008 with what you saw with Lehman Brothers and what you saw with AIG. And it'll be the same type of thing. You'll see credit default swaps all of a sudden going through the roof because that's betting on a company or companies to go bankrupt. Mm-hmm. And what'll happen is I'm sure it's absolutely sure it's going on behind the scenes now. People are digging to try to find who are the biggest counterparties to Evergrande. And they'll follow it through. I mean, they'll follow it through. If it's 3 or 4 Chinese banks, then who are their counterparties? So it becomes a huge spider web, and it's it's a detective investigation. Basically, you need to find out who the counterparties are.
Bill, and folks, we're speaking with Bill Holter. Bill, what's the best way? Just let's put this in here right now. What is the best way for our listeners to get in touch with you or to follow you and the like?
You can follow me at www.jsmineset.com, or you can contact me directly via email at b as in boy Holter at hotmail.com.
Bill, one of the, if you will, flags I saw raised recently, and you can tell me if I'm off on this, is one of the largest tech companies. It's a data analytics company by the name of Palantir. They recently bought $51 million in gold bars and stated that they would start accepting payment for their services in data analytics in gold. Palantir Technologies said it's preparing for another black swan event. I wonder if they had any idea based on their data analytics about this Evergrande occurring. We're preparing for another black swan event by stockpiling gold bars and inviting customers to pay for its data analysis software in gold. The company spent $51 million recently, part of an unusual investment strategy. Your take, Bill?
Yeah, that's very unusual for a high-tech firm. They've got to be looking down the road thinking, okay, so the system starts breaking apart like a watermelon. They want to have some capital. They want to have some real capital that can't bankrupt. And gold and silver are really the only two monies on the planet that cannot bankrupt because they're not the liability of another firm or of a central bank.
Just the other day, Bill, the economic savant himself, Joe Biden, was speaking about how the economy was, just doing fine. And, don't believe your lying eyes about inflation. Bill, when I look at the economic environment, to me it's very similar to the economic environment from the late 70s, early 80s with stagflation. Your take?
Well, it's even worse because, look, what do we have? Over 12 million people being supported by some type of unemployment or whatever. Just look around. You've got red states and you've got blue states. You've got red states that are open, and you've got blue states that they're if they could, they'd go full-blown Australia. And look at Australia. The country is basically shut down, but where's their stock market? Their stock market's at all-time highs. What a dichotomy. Mm-hmm. It makes zero sense whatsoever. The only way that could make sense, the only way it could make sense that stocks across the world are at these levels is if we're immediately going to go into hyperinflation. And that is a possibility. But if that happens, that absolutely destroys any and all credit. It destroys the bond markets. And just understand that all pensions, retirement accounts, etc., are based on bonds.
And Bill, this is essentially, and many people said, Zimbabwe was Zimbabwe with their hyperinflation and what happened there. And that could never happen in the West, such as the United States or Australia. In fact, Bill, it's happening right now.
Well, yeah, it's happening right before your eyes. It's interesting. Jim and I did an interview, I think it was probably 2015 or 16. And it was titled, "The World is Venezuela." And, that has really come true at this point because, now you're looking at shortages of goods. You're looking at inflation starting to blow up. If they're trying to tell you inflation's 3, 4, 5%, that's laughable. I was at the store today and I like a certain brand of tomato juice. And over the last 2 years, it's up over 40%. And I just shook my head. It just 5% inflation, my ass.
And see, Bill, there's this cognitive dissonance going on that I believe is going on. a number of people in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor here completely disagree with me, but there's this cognitive dissonance that there's a lot of things breaking down. And people are, I don't know, just, oh, everything's fine. No, things are not fine. And I think one of the things that will break this cognitive dissonance is the huge inflationary, or in fact, hyperinflationary pressures that we're already seeing that will only escalate.
I agree, but I really think what will break that mentality is anything more than a 10% correction in the stock market. People are just going to start freaking out because everybody looks at their statement, and they feel good. And we haven't had a 10% correction since March a year ago. It's been straight up. It's been a one-way market. And when this thing turns, that's when you're going to see people freaking out and being extremely angry.
Well, and Bill, the criminal banking syndicate, there have been a number of banksters that have come out, and banking organizations, if you want to call it, money laundering operations, all of them, that have come out and said, oh, we see some problems down the road with the financial markets, with the stock markets. They seem to be overvalued. Bill, they are giving us a heads up that they know we're all in the financial shower and they're about to flush the toilet. They've done this time and time again.
Well, all you have to do is look at what the IMF and the World Bank, the warnings that they've given out. Over the last 4 years, they've put out something like 60 separate warnings that the debt is unsustainable. And I guarantee you, once this thing comes down, they're going to point at it and say, we tried to warn you, and nobody listened.
Well, and, Bill, you and I have discussed this several years ago. Remember Terry Duffy, the CEO of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, where a lot of this precious metals illegal suppression is occurring, manipulation? He came out on with Neil Cavuto, no less, a globalist hack in and of himself, and said one day you're going to wake up and gold is going to have a astronomical price.
Right. He used the figure of $7,000, I believe.
Bill, educate our listeners in how they can follow you on a very regular basis and how they can get in touch with you, because it is in their own economic best interest to do so.
Well, you can go to www.jsmindset.com. There is a public side for now, and we have a subscription side. We do writings for subscribers, and we do a weekly call. It's about an hour. And that alone, there's more information in that 1 hour than there is, I think, anywhere each week. And if you want to contact me directly, you can email me at bholter@hotmail.com.
Bill, I'd like to thank you and the great Jim St. Clair for everything you have done, are doing, and will do. Again, folks, that website is jsmindset.com. Folks, you're listening to Operation Freedom Unplugged this week. Thanks for joining us, and stay tuned for our next segment.